The most powerful force on earth is a human soul on fire. You have a deep ache in your soul for something more, to come alive, to let your passion pour from you like an endless well. When your passion comes alive, the magnificence buried deep inside of you is unleashed. Gifts and talents you never realized surface as your life unfolds like poetry. You can do hard things. I can show you how. This is Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, where I teach you how to heal yourself from the inside out.
Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. So, I kind of want to start this episode by sharing a funny story that just happened serendipitously. I was today doing an intro session with a potential client, somebody who had been listening to me on Insight Timer, has listened to a few of my podcasts, so she'll probably hear this one. So I was coaching her and we got to this point in the session where, she had this overwhelming grief in her chest, like a bubble, and we wanted to drop into it. And she had said that it felt like she was standing on this bubble of grief. And so my sessions are always different as far as like how we get into the emotion, the intuitiveness. And so anyways, and hers was no exception. So I said, all right, we settled in. I was like, does it feel safe to go in? She's like, I think so. And so I was like, okay, well, you're standing on the grief. Why don't you just like crouch down and like touch the bubble of grief? And this is part of being intimate with the emotion, of changing our relationship with the emotion. And I said, all right, well, do you feel like safe to go into the grief? And she was like, well, I kind of have some hesitancy. So I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I was just in the moment. I was like channeling. I was like, all right, well, why don't you just like slide a finger in there? And I just like almost lost it because that is very sexual sounding. And I was like, all right, I'd put 2 fingers in there. And then I just stopped. I was like, this is very awkward. And all my sessions are different. And why don't we just like try to step in there, maybe put a toe? And we both just started laughing. And she was able to drop in. I had a live coaching of someone fingering their emotion. So just wanted to share that, another first as a coach. I'm always evolving and always growing. And I just wanted to share that little gem, just in case there's any coach proteges on here that want to develop a new technique. Fingering your emotions, it's going to be my next book. So anyways, I thought I'd share that with you. Hopefully you get a chuckle out of that. My partner certainly did, and I did, and so did this very special person. So, opening up, talking about the Yoga Sutras with that story. Here we go, because I'm Erin and this is my podcast, and why the fuck not? So today I wanted to just talk about the Yoga Sutras, specifically just the very beginning of Samadhipada. So for those of you who have not heard me talk about the Yoga Sutras as far as spiritual texts, it's my main spiritual text that I study. I've been studying it for years. I am in no way an expert, just FYI. I dabble, but I really probably dabble a lot. I teach it in my yoga teacher trainings. I read it in my free time. I chant it. So like I know my way around a sutra a bit. But just, I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just a hobbyist. I love them and I revere them and I respect them. And so I wanted to talk about them today because they're valuable. So the sutra for book 2 that begins us is Tapa Swadhyaya Ishwara Pranidhanani Kriya Yogaha. So that Yoga Sutra broken down, tapas, heat, austerity, discipline, different translations. We'll talk about that in a moment. Swadhyaya, self-study. So I consider coaching, life coaching, inner reflection, right? Recognizing your patterns. These are all self-study. But also Swadhyaya can mean study of sacred scriptures. But I like to say that you are a living sacred scripture. So I like to talk about that. And Ishwara is another name for like God, universal force, power, energy, and Ishwara Pranidhanani, so in, and then Kriya Yoga. Kriya is of action, yoga. So these are the elements of taking yoga into action. So why is that sutra important? Because to put yoga into action first, we need discipline. We need a sadhana, a daily practice. A person that takes a daily practice is a sadhaka. So I don't consider myself like a sadhaka necessarily. That term is like, I think of every, like a person showing up every single day. I think I show up a lot. I show up for this podcast. I've been doing it for almost 7 years. I think it actually might be at the 7-year mark. I think I might be working towards 8 years. It's just a blur in this human experience. But you know, I use different tools on different days depending on my emotional state, my energetic state. And I combine tools, and I'm an aware spiritual person, but I'm not perfect. And there's like not one particular practice I'm committed to, though I guess the closest thing I would be likened to would be a yogi, right? Because I follow the yogic path. I'm very familiar with the 8 limbs. I study them. So tapas is about showing up, and it's like, let's think about it as like 80% of the time. How you show up 80% of the time is probably going to determine your results. And I say 80% because I'm not a perfectionist. 100% of the time, obviously, like, we're in this human experience full time, right? Like, there's certain days where you can like try to sleep away more hours of the day. Like, I'm just a part-time human today. I don't want to do this adulting shit. I'm gonna lay in bed for an extra 2 hours and like let my subconscious like organize my experiences a little bit more, and like this little Tetris Rubik's cube inside of my head. But I always thought of tapas as like sitting within your own inner fire, because if you think of, putting something into fire over and over again, it gets more pure until like it's this irreducible substance like ash. Or they say like, and this is actually more in the lines with shaucha, which is purity. If you put it into a flame, something like gold, the impurities melt off and then it gets more and more pure. And I feel like the practice of tapas is that flame, right? You're stepping into willingly your own emotional fires, which is exactly what I did with that woman that we had the very interesting technique together, which, by the way, she was able to process and had a good cry and had a good release. It was very beautiful. So to come present, we need to have a certain amount of discipline to be able to not check out, to use the tools that we have, whether it be coaching tools or yogic tools, or if you're me and like come to my program in August 20th to the 27th, I use a combination of both and more. So yogic tools, coaching tools, and beyond. So baseline, having enough discipline to show up for yourself, to be present. You need a certain amount of energy to be present, right? Now, I've been listening to this spiritual leader. His name's Muji, and he is, I just love the way he talks, like very humble, and he talks about how your thoughts are constantly auditioning for your attention. And he said that you just need to release and not follow them in a story, and actually your space of inviting God in, of like being in that space is so easy. It's so natural. And people feel like they have to try so hard and do all these like spiritual backflips to be able to reach this space that's just so natural for us. And I get what he's saying, and I agree. And I think when you're in that space, like once you've gotten there, getting there, I feel like it is natural. It is our true nature. Taradrashtu swarupe vashtanam for 1.3 of the Yoga Sutras. Like, you see reality as it is. But the thing is, we have this like constant disruption of our brain, this movie projector that knows all of our likes and preferences and like cravings and aversions, and is constantly like dangling carrots in front of, well, not carrots, like cupcakes, something delicious, to where, oh, we're going to grab it, and we're going to run away with this story. So having the discipline to be with yourself and using the tools, that is the most important part, like when you're showing up for, especially like the inner steps of yoga, like the last three in the 8 limbs of yoga, which is dharana, dhyana, samadhi. You can even put in like pratyahara before samadhi, because samadhi is more of like a state that you reach. So it takes discipline to be able to use the tools to be able to show up, right? And that's kind of what that sutra is saying. And also it's like the Kriya yoga, it's the yoga of action, taking action, fulfilling. You need to have effort, right? So you need to give a damn, you need to show up, you need to do the damn thing, do the damn work. The next thing is swadhyaya, study. Now this also takes effort. This takes showing up. Learning your patterns of like, why are you triggered? I'm always evolving and changing. I'm not perfect. I certainly have triggers, and, my partner sometimes will speak in a certain way to where it triggers me, and we choose to, we're together, we love each other, we're committed, and we work through it. But I study myself. I journal, I do my clear formula, I get coached. So, and I'm always looking for new and different ways to go inside of myself. I've been playing gong lately. That's super awesome. I'm chanting mantra. I'm around people that will like tell me what's up, like not just tell me what I want to hear, like tell me if I'm following some bullshit story in my head. So yeah, all these elements are important. Sangha, like having a spiritual community that's going to call you on your shit, but also like be supportive, not just like, hey, you're doing the thing again, and just not give you any love. Having a loving community around you, so you can be supported in this process of studying yourself and evolving. It's a life journey. And I think when we think about evolution as, okay, no, I'm beyond that. I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. That is not in my character. I would like to present to the table, to the jury, that if you stop doing your practices that got you there, I fucking guarantee you're going to go back to it at some point. Maybe not in the same way. Maybe it's like a twisted, inverted version. So for example, if, I was addicted to heroin and, I worked a program, like got off of that. And then I was like using my tools, like maybe yogic tools and whatnot. And then I just stopped doing the work. I stopped studying myself. I stopped showing up. There is that, they call it samskara. And one of the best definitions I've heard of samskara was, I'm not remembering the person that said it. It might have been like Gregor Mahil, who I interviewed on this podcast, by the way, like quite a few episodes back, maybe 100 episodes. And he said that samskara is like, when you use a Tupperware and you have like a curry or something, and then like you eat it and you like wash it, maybe even put it through the dishwasher, and you go, like you smell it, but there's still a little bit of scent in there, just a little bit of wafting. That's a samskara. So you can like burn that shit out, right? You can do your practices, you can breathe, but the samskara a lot of times is so deep to where there's just a little bit of residue left in there. And it's like it could come back to life, right? If you stop doing your practices and your tools. Being on the spiritual path doesn't mean you reach a certain point and then you just stop doing the shit. You have to do your stuff. As far as I am concerned, I'm not anywhere near to the place where I can stop using my tools. And so that's what I teach. I don't know any spiritual people in my life that, they're just like, nope, I made it. High five. Like, I don't gotta do shit anymore. I could just float around and, be in this enlightened state. Because then you would probably want to serve, and then you might be not really in an enlightened state if you're not trying to serve humanity, I think, because I think that's the highest goal. So yoga of action, Kriya yoga. We have discipline, we have self-study, and then we have surrender. So some people are triggered by the word God. I'm not really, because I didn't really grow up, I was baptized Catholic, but we went to church once or twice a year on Easter and maybe, I don't even think Christmas Eve. So I just remember seeing all these very creepy looking saints in the Catholic Church. I was very little. And then of course, the very charming, Jesus hanging on the cross with the blood. And so, and there's definitely images in all different religions where you see something kind of gory. So That word doesn't really have any sort of negative connotation for me, so I use it freely. But some people might say like universal energy, Gaia, potentiality. So whatever resonates with you. That's important to have on the path of growth, because you need to remember that there's something bigger than you, like something bigger than your mind. Even if you're thinking of just the energy in your body that pulsates through, that you become aware of sometimes, maybe that's it. Maybe that's your Ishwara. It's important to come in contact with that energy too, because life can be big and it can feel like it's crushing you sometimes. And so having a space where you believe you can surrender some of that heaviness. You can let go of some of those thoughts. And you can come back to remembering who you are without all the stories, without all the bullshit, without all the heaviness. Because otherwise, I think you're on the path and it's like you just start to feel like crippled. It's like you start to feel so heavy, just carrying all the weight and the burden, like you're working all the time, you're studying, right? But then it's like you get too overwhelmed, too much. You need to let it go. You need to let it go, surrender it. You have upwards of 80,000 thoughts per day. And so you need to let at least some of those go. I guarantee that of 80,000 thoughts, there's probably less than 1% that are actually like really great. So this is the path of yoga in action. And in the next couple of sutras, they talk about the kleshas. So the kleshas are the obstacles. So if you stay on this path, right, it's going to help you overcome the kleshas. So the kleshas are ragas, which is like craving like being drawn to something, like seeking out pleasure. Asmita, egoism, like attaching I to everything. I am a podcaster. I am a yoga studio owner. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a brother, whatever associations. I am a doctor. A lot of times it's tied in with career or, your ranking or family member. These are all roles that we're playing, but you are not that. And when you get too closely related to, oh, well, I'm their mother, I need to do this, or I'm their father, or I'm a policeman. That's what I do. And you don't take off that hat at the end of the day, you forget who you are. It's like you're playing a role in a movie and you get stuck as that character. You'll go into psychoses. And that's why in the kleshas, they're like, hey, listen, like, yeah, you can of course, you need to fulfill these roles sometime, but no. Do not become overly associated with it. That's asmita. Abhinivesha, fear of death. So abhinivesha is not just fear of death, it's also fear of a change of your way of living. And I think that a lot of people fear that even more. We get attached to the way our life is. We get attached to the way things are. I'll share a story. So, I'm training my students in the 300 hours, like a yoga therapy training. And I was letting them use my room, which I have all my formulas in. I have my bed, it's where I spend most of my time, like a lot of time for the past 9 years. And I was initially cool with it. I was like, yeah, my students they're using my room. It's fine. It's easy. They have the key to the thing. And then I came in the one day and there was a thing moved. It was even a trivial thing. It was a bottle of lotion or an essential oil or something. And I was immediately I felt violated, which is interesting. And I probably need to look at. But in that moment, just with everything going on, sometimes you have emotional stuff come up and it's you need to pick your battles. And so I sat with that. And then the next time I came in, it was something stupid. Again, the stool was moved to the other side of the bed and it wasn't where I wanted it. And one of the sheets was unfolded. It was really trivial. And so I had to have a conversation with my students saying, hey, I think having you guys use my space, I think I want to take that off the table because I have a need for my own space. And I guess so I explained it to them in a nice way, But that's just an example of like fear of change. And like, that was fucking minuscule. So can you imagine like all of a sudden like losing a limb? Can you imagine all of a sudden like losing your career of 30 years, your partner of your entire life, right? Like that I think people fear more than death. I think because death is such like a finality, people don't even understand it. But rather like radically changing the way that you live, I think is the bigger fear. So we can get caught up in that and just staying in that state of fear. I mean, just look at 2020 and 2021 and even going forward, people are in a state of fear because we fear just like what the next thing is, like that things are going to change. We're not going to have our comforts, right? So the one of the remedies for this is vairagyam, practicing non-attachment so that we don't get so attached to these things that we just need them. Also helps with raga. The next thing is, and actually this is like the most important klesha. If you have this, then the other ones, it's like, this is the big one, avidya. So avidya is like Veda means knowledge. So avidya is a kind of like a knowledge word, and avidya, what's the opposite of knowledge, is ignorance. If in Sanskrit, if you see an a in front of the root word, a lot of times it's like the opposite of like right? Non-violence, non-communication. So ignorance is like, if you don't even have awareness of all this stuff, if you don't have awareness of that you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your thoughts, you're the consciousness that pulses below the surface, then how can you even do any of the work? Like if you think you're here, if you overly, you're like, yes, I am my body. Like you're going to freak out when like something happens to it, and like things happen. There was a gal that worked out at a gym of mine, like that I used to go to a few years back. She lost a pinky. And like, that's insane. Like you just like all of a sudden, boop, you don't have that finger anymore. Like, but that shit like that happens all the time. Right. So, I don't know, went off on that tangent, but avidya. So ignorance. If you don't know, you can't do the work. So that's the biggest klesha. And then dvesha. Dvesha is avoidance, right? So how much of our time do we spend avoiding the shit we don't like? Right? I've talked about this before on the podcast. And a lot of time we spend avoiding. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to, like, for example, uncomfortable conversations. I have a friend and I love him very much. And if he listens to this, he's going to know I'm talking about him, but I'm not going to say his name. I love him so much. And he's such an inspiration in our community. He does not like to have uncomfortable conversations. And he's always like, you have uncomfortable conversations? How many do you have today? I was like, 3. He's like, what? He's just like blown away by that. And I'm like, listen, dude, the reason I have those uncomfortable conversations is because I don't want it to ruminate in my mind, for one. For two, I don't like, if I keep avoiding the thing, it has power over me. I'd rather charge right into it. And maybe that's why I am the way that I am. Maybe that's why my relationships are deeper than ever, and I've accomplished what I have because I have a way about me that I'll go into uncomfortable shit because I know that I can handle it and I know that I can get to the other side. So I don't like, there's definitely stuff that I avoid. I hate cold. I just hate it. Like my sister wants me to come visit up in Michigan for winter, and I went once because it's just like you forget. I think like, you forget how cold is, especially living in Florida. And I went, and like I was just so fucking miserable. I would just want to be inside the whole time. If we had to like go somewhere, I was like rocking, like to like bring myself into like a mental state to be able to go outside. It was like they were making fun of me, and rightfully I deserved it because I was being a fucking baby. But that's even something like I wanted to remedy when my friend Mfan came down to Florida. She's from California, and Florida water at that time was like cold for a Floridian, but like not for a Californian. So we went in the water and she went in, and I wanted to be with her. So I fucking actually like charged the water, but I was screaming the whole time. I was like, ah! And just like shaking my fists like a 3-year-old, and she was laughing hysterically. It was almost like I was going into battle, but imagine like a toddler that like their equipment is falling and like their gear is put on halfway and like their diaper is falling down. And that was me, except for my diaper was up. I was wearing a bikini, not a diaper. I'm not at that point yet in my life. Hopefully I'll never be if I keep doing Mula Bandha and yoga. So Dvesha is avoidance. So these kleshas, these are obstacles for us to reach not just state of yoga, but also to reach that space of samadhi and keep on the path of the yoga of action. So that was a lot. So I'm going to leave it at that. I also like my throat's just a tiny bit scratchy, so hopefully I sound okay today. Just want to let you know that I do have my coaching course coming up in August 20th to the 27th. We just got a couple more signups. So there's a few spaces left. If you're interested, you can go to thriveyogafit.com. You can reach out to me, Erin at erincoach.com. And yeah, check out my meditations on Insight Timer, guys. If you haven't yet, like you're missing out on a big chunk of something cool that I did. I have like 12, 14, maybe even 16 meditations on there. I will tell you this. So I'm going to offer this if you want to kind of like work with me in some capacity, because I'm not currently taking any more coaching clients. I'm at my cap. But if you are interested in having me record a personalized meditation for you, I can do that, and I'll even give you a pretty good deal on it. The only thing is that I get to post it on Insight Timer. I won't use your name, but if you have a topic and you can give me some details as far as what you want the meditation recorded on, I will do that for you. And we can talk about like a fee. I'll make it affordable. I think that's it. I hope that you have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for listening and for like subscribing and for like sharing me with your friends and for like leaving a review. Also, if you do leave a review, we just signed up for a program that's going to, because I guess in different countries, if you leave a review, I can't read all of them. So I just signed up for the service that is going to help me access all reviews. If you have a question for me, I'm going to find it in the reviews and I will read it and I will answer it on the podcast as long as, I can. So I hope you have a great week. Namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin at erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Last thing, we have a coaching certification coming up, and it's 7 days of an intensive work, followed by a 3-month mentorship. You will not find another teacher that's more passionate and dedicated than I am to my students and their learning, and not just their learning, but the application and how they show up in their life. If you've been listening to this podcast and it's had a huge impact on your life, just imagine what it would be like to spend 7 intensive days with me and then a 3-month mentorship. You can check that out at thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Again, thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Thank you so much. Namaste.